Okay, welcome to my word story. Today we are going to be talking about the word fiddle. So fiddle, kind of a weird word, I suppose, if you think about it. One of those words that maybe if you said it a million times over, you'd be like, whoa, what does this word even mean? I don't even know. So here's a nice little picture of a fiddle to help you keep in mind what it means. As I was doing my research, there was actually a couple surprises. So I want to take us back to the very beginning, the very best place to start, as we all know, and go all the way back once upon a time to Middle Latin, where the word vitula meant stringed instrument, which, because violin wasn't invented until around the 16th century in Italy, what the Latin word would have been translated as something that we would imagine as closer to a lyre or a harp, so stringed instruments. And so as you can see here, it broke off in two main directions. So I'll go through the first, and then the second was what surprised me a little bit. And as always, remember, this is all somewhat speculative. As I was researching this word, these changes weren't necessarily marked down in stone, but because of some sound fossils, I suppose we could call them, there is a bit of a connection. So I will hopefully be able to draw that out a little more clearly. So the word vitula in Old English became fidele, and Middle English fidele, and then Old High German fidula, Middle High German videle, and then German fidel. So as we see, remember the Latin root was vitula with the voiced interdental fricative of v, and in the Old English, Middle English, and Old High German, we see a consonant shift with becoming an unvoiced interdental fricative, so moving to the sound of the F. However, because Middle High German has the voiced sound, they were able to trace this word speculatively, remember, back to vitula. And this is where it surprised me a bit. So think about the word violin, which would be the same image that pops in your mind most likely when you think about a fiddle. Violin and viola stem from the root viol, which is now archaic but meant stringed instrument. And that is directly traced back to that Middle Latin vitula. So the word viol was fairly consistent through Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese. And the Old English points out that the Old French, or the OED, sorry, there's a typo in the PowerPoint, points out that the Old French form viel stems most clearly representative of the earlier Latin forms of vitula. So both the word violin and fiddle stem from the same Latin root, even though they ended up meaning quite different things. Because when we imagine a violin, we think most clearly of the instrument and then of a style that is more classical, more formal, more directional. Think of maybe some famous performers or orchestral music. When you think of a fiddle, you often think of maybe Pa from Little House on the Prairie pulling it off the shelf and playing a hoedown, or somebody fiddling around, tinkering in the garage. So they kind of went a higher direction and a lower direction, if that makes sense. But the word fiddle, for it being a common and kind of sillier meaning, has stuck with us for quite some time. So the word fiddle began to emerge in context as an instrument that had a merry, jolly type of music. And that became a common word from the late 1500s to 1600s. And then began to be manipulated into our language to mean even more diverse things. So going as far to be used as a noun for jester, a fiddler, in the 1660s to 1800s. But here's some that you might have also heard. Fiddling around, like I said, when we think of fiddle music, we think of something that doesn't have as consistent of a direction, but is more fun and exciting. When you fiddle around, you don't have a clear direction, but you're just kind of tinkering. Fiddlesticks, so again, kind of like that nonsense. It would be nonsense to have just a fiddle stick and no fiddle to play with. it on. As fit as a fiddle. This is kind of a fun one. Not tying directly back to that nonsensical bit of fiddling, but was used as early as the 1600s to mean like, yes, in fine shape or good condition. And I think the alliteration with fit and fiddle, or also its kind of partner in crime, as fine as a fiddle, yeah, I think they've stuck around as long as they have just because it rolls off the tongue. It's fun to say. And sometimes those things just end up sticking with us for quite some time. Playing first or slash second fiddle would be to play the number one part, as in like, oh, she's playing second fiddle, maybe like what we would consider saying something like third wheeling, or like the third friend on the sidewalk when you get out of line. Fiddle faddle, again tying back to the musical connotation, kind of to just mess around. Fiddle faddle, to be silly. Or fiddle brained, again, nonsensical, kind of silly. So that is the word fiddle and how it has kind of morphed and changed and also stuck around throughout time. And its surprising cousin-like connection to its more formal counterpart, the violin. Thank you for tuning in, pun completely intended, and here is the bonus feature of me fiddling around, so you can either X out now or watch at your own risk.